Star Wars, best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, a UK-based Star Wars podcast with in-depth discussions and analysis sprinkled with some silliness. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
And I am Jason Hondo Ling.
And it is just the two of us in the cockpit today, steering all of you lovely listeners through the latest Star Wars news. But before we get started, Jace, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, Pete. Keeping out of trouble just about.
Well, I know you've got an action-packed couple of weeks coming up. I think you're at a big convention with the Mando Mercs this next weekend. Is that right?
Yeah, I've got MCM up in Birmingham. I'm going up to have my first experience handling for the Mando Mercs whilst I try and get my armour sorted so that I can hopefully begin trooping with them at some point.
That sounds very exciting. And then you've got an even bigger convention shortly after that. Is that right?
Yeah, and then the following Sunday, I've got Thank the Maker in Fordingbridge, the second event organised by Dave Tree and the guys farthest from. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That's obviously looking back at 10 years since The Force Awakens, and a lot of interesting guests there that are coming along to tell us about their experiences whilst making that film.
I'm very jealous about that one. I cannot wait to hear all about it. And we'll have to do a special podcast where we talk about what went on at Thank the Maker. So that's your next few weekends, very jam-packed. But I heard you had a very, very exciting Saturday night. Is that right?
Yeah, no, I had the chance to take the two girls and a friend of mine down to Axminster in Devon. And we went to see friend of the show, Ian Slater, and his group Don't Stop, who are a Fleetwood Mac tribute act. And I got to go and obviously experience that, which was really good. The guys were absolutely amazing, really blew it out of the park. And it gave me the chance to catch up with Ian, who I haven't seen since we last saw him at Celebration, Pete. So, and obviously we had a quick chat about how things have gone since we did that. And yeah, it was good to be able to catch up and to listen to some really cool live music.
I mean, I'm very jealous because, again, the last time I seen Mr. Ian Slater was at Star Wars Celebration in London. He's, of course, probably the sexiest guitarist in the Star Wars fandom. And he also is the guitarist with the most midichlorians in history. So, Ian Slater, this is my challenge to you. You need to bring the band up to Newcastle. Bring it up to the tune. We'll have a class time, and I'll take you to the big market after for loads of pints and loads of kebabs. That's my promise to you, Ian. You bring the show, that's what we'll do. That's what we're going to do. I will love it if we did that. Right, and that's a Kevin Keegan reference, anyone who doesn't know, Mr. King Kev. But yes, it sounds like you had a great time. Obviously, Mr. Ian Slater, a big fan of the podcast, and his support means a lot to us, so we love giving them a shout out and supporting back where possible. Are you ready for the first news story?
I think so.
Let's dive straight in. So we've got two linked together. It's all about the Mandalorian and Grogu, obviously coming to cinemas next summer. Jon Favreau's been speaking about the Mandalorian and the Mandalorian Grogu. So first of all, Jon Favreau on the Mandalorian's fourth season. So obviously we all know that the third season of the Mandalorian came to an end in April 2023. And whilst we're waiting for Din Djarin's big screen debut in May 2026, Empire Magazine have asked Jon Favreau about a fourth season of the Disney Plus show, with the showrunner sharing he'd finished writing it before they decided to make a movie, which I think we've heard this before. What he said was, "We were planning on doing a fourth season. I had actually written all of that. I still have season 4 sitting on my desk here. Favreau didn't share any more or any plans for after The Mandalorian and Grogu is released, so I guess I'll have to wait till next May to see what happens next. I think if The Mandalorian and Grogu does well, I can see that season 4 just sort of being adapted into movies, maybe. Don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that due to the nature of the beast and everything, and the success of Mandalorian, and also obviously the success of Pedro Pascal, I've got a feeling the days of the Mando TV series are possibly numbered. But I don't necessarily think it's the end of Mando and Grogu's adventures. I think it will obviously depend a lot on the success of the film, as to where they go. But also, we know the way Disney are working now, their focus is very much on the cinema and the big screen. So I think, yeah, it just makes sense for that now. And I actually think if you look at the way they ended season 3, it really closed it off really neatly, as a story. I do feel that it set up an amazing spin off that I would love to see, but I'm not sure if we ever will. But I can but dream.
Yeah, I think, I believe, I can't remember exactly which year, but I believe this summer saw sort of the lowest box office turnout since the early 80s, 1 year in the early 80s. Since COVID, sort of Hollywood has struggled in certain ways, and the film industry has struggled in certain ways. It's also had some big successes as well. You look at Top Gun Maverick to name one of a few. Twisters was another one that did well. So I feel Disney probably are turning away. Where can we get back into theaters, get back into theatrical release? Obviously, try and make it as healthy as possible because they don't want cinemas to die. They don't want movie theaters to die. I don't want movie theaters to die. I love going to the movies, whether it's a big movie that's a $200 million or whether it's a small $4 million film. I like watching my stories in that environment. I think there's no better place to watch them. So, yeah, we'll see. What I would say is that I would hate to see the season 4 wasted. So if season 4 has been written, and if we've used some of that for this movie, and there's more in there, then let's give it to us. Whether that's in another movie or whether it's just a shortened or a special Disney Plus presentation, maybe if it can't be a full season now, maybe we can do those type of things. Our second story again is linked to the Jon Favreau interview. So again, he's spoken to Empire about the Mandalorian and Grogu. He's talking about the Mandalorian's changed his priorities, and he also talks about how this links in with what's happening in other areas of the Star Wars galaxy. So, yes, the Mandalorian has changed his priorities and is now working for the good guys, Sigourney Weaver's Colonel Ward and Zeb Orrelios from Star Wars Rebels. So what was said in the Empire magazine was, with the Mandalorian and Grogu, two of the most beloved characters in the latest generation of Star Wars stories, are finally going cinematic with a bigger mission than ever before as Din Djarin teams up with former Rebels on a Delphi base. The Mandalorian has changed his priorities, director Jon Favreau tells Empire, of where Djarin is at this point. One of the last things we say in season 3 is I don't want to go out there, I just want to be a hired gun, I want to work for the good guys. That means receiving work from Sigourney Weaver's Colonel Ward and working with Zeb Orrelios, the fan favourite Lasat from Star Wars Rebels, briefly seen in Mando season 3. Now we get to really have fun with him, promises Favreau. He's such a compelling character, even if you've never seen Rebels, between the voice, the swagger, and the physical ability. For years, though, Din Djarin and Grogu anchor the first Star Wars film in 7 years. Since 2019, The Rise of Skywalker is on our two heroes. That central relationship as they go off and face adventure together, that's the underpinning of the film, says Favreau. Star Wars is always about progression and growth and characters evolving, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. It's about apprenticeship, it's about one generation teaching the next. There's more growth that happens over the course of the film. Adventure awaits. I thought this was very interesting about how how he's essentially going to be teaming up with the New Republic. So obviously we know Zeb and Colonel Ward are very much New Republic fighters at Delphi base, the New Republic base. So I think this is going to help tie in the Mandalorian universe to what's happening in Ahsoka and Ahsoka Season 2 and the return of Thrawn. But what's your thoughts on what I've just said there?
Yeah, it's obviously seeing the way it's all going. It's they're obviously linked in, and we've seen that. So I wasn't surprised by these comments, and it's something that obviously I'm looking forward to seeing how it all links together. I think we always knew that Ahsoka was going to be linked to the story of Mando and Grogu, because of obviously what we'd seen with Zeb appearing. So yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I've seen both of these sort of things, and I've sort of thought this is all stuff that I'd sort of already assumed was happening. So to me, it's almost like old news, and I don't know why I feel like that.
I think some of it, I mean, even the first snippet I read, about the Season 4 being written, we've heard that before as well. So, I mean, I haven't read the full article. You can read the full article in Empire. It's in their current issue, which is the Odyssey issue. That's on sale Thursday the 20th, so it's already on sale. So, there could be more in there. But, yeah, I think, obviously, starting to do some press. We've had the trailer. The posters I've seen in the wild. Apparently the trailer's in the wild now in the cinemas. I haven't seen it personally myself yet. In some cinemas I've seen cardboard cutouts of as well, which looks quite cool, like the big cardboard displays in some cinemas as well. So, we're starting the promotion for the movies. What I should be saying, that's what I'm trying to say. So if that means he's just because we've been taught this for a while, right? So maybe this article in Empire is just rehashing some of the things we already know, just to get us up to speed and get the people who maybe aren't as in it as us up to speed, and then hopefully all the new information is coming soon. Either way, the Mandalorian and Grogu is a presence. It's a presence in movie theaters in both posters and cardboard cutouts. It's a presence in some theaters in trailers. It's a presence online in trailers. And then, as we've seen here, Jon Favreau's doing the rounds and he's talking about the movie, which is positive. And, I think let's proper drive this up. Let's go marketing crazy. I think let's get Mandalorian and Grogu everywhere between now and May when it comes out. Because I think, as the article says, it's the first Star Wars film since 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. It's been 7 years since we've had a Star Wars movie in the theaters. Let's not take that for granted. Let's market the hell out of this thing and market it well as well. Let's get people excited and, let's all have a great time. Keeping things sort of Star Wars Rebels related, I suppose you could say. Zeb Orellis was in the last article. So, Star Wars Rebels executive producer Henry Gilroy. He is no relation to the Gilroys who work on Andor. He thinks making Sabine Wren a Jedi was wrong. So obviously there is a podcast called Pod of Rebellion, and that sort of reviews Star Wars Rebels. I believe it's the casting crew, Star Wars Rebels. Rewatch it and just review it. So yes, on a recent episode of Pod of Rebellion, Star Wars Rebels executive producer Henry Gilroy shared his thoughts on Sabine Wren becoming a Jedi. What he said was, the idea of Sabine training as a Jedi when she is already a fantastic warrior of her own hype. We felt like this is overkill. I don't know if you've read this article or listened to the podcast episode with Henry Gilroy's thoughts on this, Jason.
I read the article, and I have to admit I was intrigued to probably try and listen to the podcast. I have listened to the first ever Pod of the Rebellion, but I've not managed to listen to any of the others, because it's obviously, we all know I'm a huge fan of any sort of Rebel stuff, and I did find it interesting listening to the cast talking about the series and that. But it's quite funny because I probably agree almost with his statement, and with his feeling. And I think a lot of people, it's one of the things that we sort of struggled with the Ahsoka series. But I think because it was, to me, it was a great series, I could sort of just trust in Dave as I like to say. But I can see where he's coming from, and it's yeah, I'm quite interested in listening to the context of it, because I think there is a genuine argument for what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think he was an executive producer on the show the other day. I think what he says that was discussed during the production of Star Wars Rebels, and they sort of decided. The quote is, "It was absolutely not the plan. We really felt that not only did it step on Ezra's story, it was a weak retreat. We already did this." So like that was what was discussed during the production of Rebels. Was that the idea was floated. He doesn't say who by this, but yeah, he might do on the podcast. But I'd imagine Dave Filoni maybe. But they agreed that it was a weak retreat, and they've already done it with Ezra. Let's not convolute the series, so they didn't do it. And he's gone back to say, I had nothing to do with the Ahsoka series, so I was shocked. What I love about the story with the Darksaber is that you don't have to be a Jedi to have Jedi ideals. I think that's what's really the more important thing, rather than Force pushing Ezra 100 feet when she's never used the Force before. So, I think we did speak about that. So, it's interesting to see, we hear some voices from inside Lucasfilm. And not saying Henry Gilroy works for Lucasfilm now, but obviously Henry Gilroy was executive producer on Star Wars Rebels. And he's saying we had this idea, and then we didn't use it, and then for reasons why, because they didn't use it because it convoluted the story and it didn't match what they were trying to do. And then here we are in this sort of series, and it's back there. So that's why I think maybe it was Dave's idea, because the sort of series is Dave, and I think we have to see how it plays out in season 2, because we're obviously going to have Ahsoka and Sabine alone together on this planet with the ghost of Anakin sort of maybe teaching them the ways to try and stop Bane and Skull doing whatever he's trying to do. So we will see. But yeah, I think there's a lot to fill in, from where we leave Sabine in Star Wars Rebels to where we see her in Ahsoka, and there's all this Jedi training apparently taking place, which is not very good at it. That needs to be mentioned somewhere. I'm not saying we need the whole thing, but we need some sort of depiction of what that looked like, I feel. Any closing thoughts on that?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's something that will be interesting to see how it's playing out, because we all want to see how this story develops, and especially the Balen Skull story in particular.
Indeed. Moving on, Leslye Headland on what really happened with Star Wars The Acolyte. So talking to TheWrap.com, Leslye Headland has shared her thoughts regarding the cancellation of The Acolyte. She was, of course, the showrunner on the show. I was not surprised I think I was surprised at the swiftness of it and the publicness of it, she said. I was surprised by how it was handled. There was a lot of unfair virtual about The Acolyte online, and for it to be the first Star Wars show to be publicly cancelled, Lucasfilm had never done that. While the whole thing with The Acolyte was always a major risk, it was a new part of the timeline, it was all new characters, it was a part of the lore where you couldn't use a stormtrooper, you didn't have the reference of the politics and war that Tony Gilroy has brilliantly exploited in such a genius way in Andor, but all the iconography and all those visual references, the original trilogy references, and our references were the High Republic novels and the publishing initiative, and then the prequels, specifically with the lightsabers. I also think that any gripes creatively with the show are completely valid. That's people's reaction. It's usually their reaction to their own reaction. But like I said, the show was always a risk. It's the old adage of the first one through the wall is the bloodiest. And this is very cinematic, coming back to your question about the company. It was just very much, let's shoot for the sky, let's just go for it. So I have no regrets, and I'm absolutely obsessed with Star Wars. I still am, and I love my show, and I know that it was wonderful. And honestly, the designers that work on the show are more responsible for it because of what Star Wars is. Creating that world is honestly harder than creating the narrative and the dialogue and the characters. That's stuff I've done. It's more hiring the right people, and all of those people were brilliant. What was the experience for you to see the show not only get attacked but weaponized by certain parts of the media? I have thoughts about this, and I don't want to go on a tangent, so I'll stick to the personal rather than the professional. I was not online, however, I am a Star Wars fan, which means I have always been, since the launch of YouTube, part of the Star Wars recap, criticism, lionization, fandom community. These guys I've known for years and years, so when I got the information from others about what The weather report was there was this real concern from friends of mine and co-workers of mine that saddened me. I was also like, I know who these guys are. You don't have to tell me who's talking about it or how bad it is online. I know exactly who they are. I supported them on Patreon. There are some of them that I respect. There are some of them that I think absolutely snake oil salesmen, just opportunists. Then, of course, they are the fascists and the racists. So it runs a gamut. It isn't just one thing or the other. So I think that if you're in part of the fandom, you understand the genre and the tone of particular channels and creators. So in some ways I wasn't surprised, and in other ways I was disappointed. I think you always do that when you create something. It's just that Star Wars is on a massive level of visibility. The content that is being put out by the streamers or the studios is being snatched up by these other creators. And so commentaries, synopsises, live videos, all of the ways that these creators make money through viewer-based ad revenues and their Patreons, there's a lot of money to be made. And by the way, have at it. Get your coin 100%. But it revealed to me that there is a misunderstanding between the studios and that engagement. They think of it as fandom, and in ways it is, but studios use it almost like a focus group. It made me start to think, rather than these fans are toxic or this thing is being mean to me, it made me think more that the content is being made about Star Wars will ultimately be more culturally impactful than actual Star Wars. I believe we're headed into that space. Those IPs will continue to make money, but I don't know how much they will affect the next generation as much as the content that is being created around those events, IP films and television shows. This is a proper business model rather than a bunch of mean people. It's a lot more financial than I think people realise. And as somebody that really has supported a lot of those channels financially, and with my eyeballs, some of that stuff is probably the only content that our younger generation is seeing. Was the cancellation decision shocking to you? Did they explain why? Was it viewership or creative? She went on to say, it was kind of both. I was not surprised by it. I think I was surprised at the swiftness of it and the publicness of it. I was surprised by how it was handled. But once I was getting particular phone calls about the reaction and the criticism and the viewership, I felt like, oh, the writing's on the wall for sure. The viewership was a little muddled for me because, and this is my understanding, with Star Wars, you're not just measured within the marketplace that you happen to be in at that time. You're measured against every other Star Wars show. We hit the Nielsen's a couple of times. Not every week or anything like that, but a couple of times it poked through. I feel like for a launch of a first season show that was trying different things, I think it could have been worth it to allow the audience it was meant for to find it. But that wasn't up to me, so I fully respect the decision, even if I'm sad about it. She was asked, had you plotted much ahead in terms of season 2? My showrunner and I had a lot of ideas going into season 1, so we definitely were thinking about that. Significantly with Manny Jacinto's character, we always knew that Lee Jung-jae was going to be the emotional anchor of the first season, watching the deterioration of that father figure. So we had already thought ahead and thought about what type of relationship we wanted to look at in the second season. We had talked about all of that from a thematic and character standpoint, but in terms of actual narrative, there was only a couple of signposts that we knew we wanted to hit. There's quite a lot there, but I wanted to read it all. Obviously, Leslye Headland speaking on the record quite in depth about the Acolyte and the aftermath, and I think she's absolutely right. I think when you look at certain channels, and I think there's people in the middle who just want to talk about, what they like and what they don't, and aren't really too biased. There's people who have, an agenda who, let's just say are far right, and they getting that type of, sort of fascist, sexist, that type of, racial, and sort of anti-LGBTQ narrative, and that's what's getting the clicks, and they're going to head more towards that and report more on that with every video. I think what sums up to me is that, so I know in the family there's a young boy, and I got to talk to him recently, and then are you like Star Wars? And I was like, yeah. And then he started talking a lot about the Acolyte and stuff, and Kathleen Kennedy, and how these women are bad for Star Wars, and this kid's 6, right? And and he's saying all these things. I'm like, you've been watching, your dad and your mum have you watch far right Star Wars YouTube. And at the end I was like, have you seen that? It's like, no, I haven't. But I've seen the people talking about it, and so I don't want to watch it because the people on the internet are saying it's not right, so it's not right. And I was like, well, and that's the whirlwind, I think, right now, and that's the problem. Is that we, these channels and these communities do have a lot of clout, and if they're saying things and then people are just listening to them without actually watching it themselves and forming their own opinion, then we are doomed, I suppose. What's your thoughts on all of that, I suppose, Jason?
Yeah, no, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That it's actually quite a dangerous time in some ways, because we're very strong on freedom and speech and that, but there is also, you know, there's got to be a moral responsibility to be, um, how can I put it? You've got to be careful with how you present stuff and how you put this across. I have to admit, as you know, I've got a 12-year-old daughter, and some of the stuff, having some of the conversations with her over some of the stuff that she watches on these different channels, it's kids are at a vulnerable stage these days, and there's a way that stuff can be manipulated. And I definitely do think that there's people with agendas, and I think we saw it sort of sneak in with the Acolyte more so. I had my issues with the Acolyte for storytelling purposes and that, but there was some really unnecessary and quite often vitriol that was out there. And because of the modern world that we live in, it's able to get through, and we got to ask ourselves the question: is should it be? I don't want to see it policed, but at the same time, it worries me about the effect that it can have on youngsters. So yeah, a lot of what Leslye Headland said there, I could, I think I've probably discussed it on here, and I've discussed it that, my frustration at the time of the Acolyte was there was a lot of press releases that I think were actually done all at once and then timed to come out after each episode. I just felt like it was almost combative, but then maybe it needed to be combative because there was all this going on behind the scenes. But it was it's something that, in reflection, I think really took away from what was actually quite a good show. So I can understand why she's frustrated, and her comments there about, there there are there are certain channels out there that are very much, they'll go for what's going to make them the most money and have the most effect. And they're doing this not because they're Star Wars fans, but because it's either getting across their point or making them some money. So yeah, it's quite it's an interesting article. I did read it myself, and I thought it almost changed my opinion on some of the stuff that went on during the Acolyte. And I thought, yeah, it was, and it still is, quite a dangerous place to be. The problem is, these people actually have a lot of power, but do they have the responsibility? So yeah,
Definitely. And I think Lucasfilm have a responsibility in Disney as well, because it's like, I remember obviously during the Acolyte, during its release schedule, they did a lot of social media, for a lot of good social media, and they were sending goodies out and they were really interacting with like a lot of the fan community who was enjoying the show and was supporting it, and sending them goodies and promoting things. And then like show comes to an end, and then obviously all the virtual starts, and then like Lucasfilm and Disney just go quiet, and then just say, oh yeah, we're cancelling it, like the far right's right. And then so not only all the people that was championing in the build up, it's sort of abandoned, and then obviously people like Leslye Headland abandoned the creators as well. So I think they need to learn that they've got to, if it's their product and they're putting it out, they need to stand by till the end. Whether they cancel it or they don't, I'm not saying that, like, but there's a way to do it. That makes sense. And I feel they just left all the fans who enjoyed the show under attack with no support. And then they left, even though they championed them to talk about it in the first place in a positive way. And then obviously the creators themselves are left sort of without a paddle as well, which wasn't good. I think moving on from that, next story is Galaxypalooza. This is a Star Wars fan event, so the first guest announcements have been made. So obviously our good buds over at Star Wars Sessions, they have announced the first guests for Galaxypalooza that is taking place on June the 6th, 2026. It's at the Mill Arts and Event Centre in Raleigh. As Michael Crater, who was of course Bib Fortuna, artist Paul Shipper, who did a lot of awesome movie art. I remember meeting him at Star Wars Celebration Orlando where he signed my lanyard because he did the artwork for that. And Gianna Venturini and Greg Armstrong of Red 5 Designs. They're all going to be in attendance, which is pretty cool. So yeah, let's just run through it. So the first guest announcement, award-winning artist Paul Shipper. He will be attending Galaxypalooza. Paul is highly respected in the entertainment industry, having produced official key art for Star Wars The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, The Phantom Menace 20th anniversary, and Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary. He also designed the fantastic key art for Star Wars Celebration in 2017 and 2019. Outside of Star Wars, Paul has provided key art for several other major productions, including Avengers Infinity War, Doctor Strange, Batman, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Ready Player One, Back to the Future, Big Hero 6, and The Hateful Eight. Paul has also worked consistently with Empire Magazine, Titan Magazine's IDW, Arrow Video, Shout Factory to produce magazine and physical media cover art. So that's obviously fantastic. Obviously, they're also excited to announce Michael Crater. So Michael Crater will be attending Galaxypalooza. We all know he's well known playing Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi. Obviously appearing in several key scenes in Jabba's palace. And then obviously we've got the two guys from Red 5 Designs, that is Gianni Venturini and Greg Armstrong. The pair authored and released the outstanding Star Wars Toy Guide Volume 1. That's the Kenner action figures, 1977 to 1985, and that book came out in 2024. And the collector's item has quickly become one of the most sought after and praised books in collecting circles. So, alongside the Toy Guide, Red 5 Designs also produced posters and mini guides with Star Wars Toy Guide Volume 2, Kenner vehicles, creatures, and playsets, 1977 and 85 being released in the future. So, yeah, pretty exciting for the guys over at Star Wars Sessions. You know, the first announced as Galaxypalooza. Didn't quite know what was going to be happening, but they've announced the first guests, and they've got a Star Wars actor, they've got an awesome Star Wars artist, and then they've got, you know, two people who've created an awesome Star Wars guide that's, you know, very sought after in the collecting community. What's your thoughts on the announcements, and how exciting is it to see more Star Wars events popping up?
Yeah, it looks quite an exciting sort of event. Like we've discussed, you know, ourselves. There are a lot of events starting to pop up, and really, really cool chances to meet people that have been involved over the years. And this event looks like it's shaping up to be quite a cool one to get a chance to go along to.
Indeed, it certainly will be awesome. I'm excited to see who else he announced, because I think there is further announcements to be made. Moving on to some Emmy nominations. So Star Wars gets 22 nominations at the 4th Annual Children and Family Emmys. So yes, Star Wars has been nominated for 22 awards at the 4th Annual Children's and Family Emmys, with 17 nods for Star Wars Skeleton Crew, 4 for Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures, and 1 for LEGO Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy Part 2. I didn't realise this was a thing, that there was an annual Children's and Family Emmys, but it's great to see Star Wars, which is primarily for children, I suppose, nominated so highly. Yeah, 22 nominations, nothing to be snuffed at. We know Andor was sort of nominated in the main or adults category, I suppose you could say, but it's good to see it nominated here. And off the back of that as well, Skeleton Crew, off the back of the announcement, the original soundtrack is available now on CD and vinyl. The vinyl, obviously, looks like it's 4 golden discs, which is pretty cool considering the gold is what they're after throughout the entire series. But yeah, hot off the heels of 17 nominations for Star Wars Skeleton Crew at the Emmys, the score for the Disney Plus series by Mick Giacchino is available now on CD and vinyl. It's from Mutant, and it's in partnership with Walt Disney Records and Lucasfilm Limited. And let's have a look at what the details are. So, yes, featuring exclusive liner notes by composer Mick Giacchino and pressed on limited edition 4x 140 gram gold vinyl. It looks absolutely fantastic, and that's also available on CD as well. I suppose 2 things. What's your thoughts on Star Wars getting, you know, a huge 22 nominations in the Children's and Families Emmys? And what's your thoughts on, you know, us getting a very nice product there in terms of, it'll be niche, don't be loads of them, but for people who want that lovely looking vinyl score for Skeleton Crew can get it.
Yeah, no, it's really cool that these events or these awards are available now, and more of these different sort of bespoke awards are going out there. And obviously, George Lucas, I think himself, said that the target audience was kids. So it shows that they're doing something right because they've got so many nominations in their target audience group. And it's good to see that Skeleton Crew is getting some recognition, because I did thoroughly enjoy that series. And maybe if they got a bit of, if they actually won some silverware, they might actually get a bit more hope for maybe going a little bit further. So yeah, I'm really pleased that this is going through, and it'd be interesting to see what the results turn out as, and how um, Lucasfilm and Disney get on with their awards.
Indeed. I think for me, it's just great to see it nominating. 22 is huge. And great to see it's a mix of live action and animated shows. So we've got, you know, Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures, which is its own animated show. We've got Star Wars Skeleton Crew, which is obviously live action, big production on Disney Plus. And then we've got sort of the Lego Star Wars crossover Rebuild the Galaxy, also nominated, which is fantastic. So yeah, really, 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 really good. I think let's see if any of them can bring home the award. I'm not sure if these are as seen as such a big deal as the main Emmys, but hey, I don't know why you wouldn't. Emmy's an Emmy at the end of the day, so good luck and congratulations to everybody involved in creating these shows, and hopefully we bring home a couple of the 22 Emmys home to Lucasfilm. And that brings us into all of the Star Wars new topics I had listed. Jason, is anything Star Wars related you want to talk about that we haven't?
Not that I can think of. I think we've got quite a bit. I know we covered quite a lot last time, and we've covered quite a few different things this time.
We have indeed. There's never a dull week in the Star Wars fandom.
No, definitely not. And obviously, as we were saying there's more and more events coming up, which we're going to get to talk about as well, which is really cool, especially as we're heading towards May, where we will then get to talk about a whole new Star Wars experience.
We will indeed. So before we get there, I believe you've had a delivery of a certain Lego set that you're excited to build soon.
Yeah, so I've got my Christmas Day sorted, and Chopper has arrived. So I will be building the Lego kit of Chopper. I'm really looking forward to having a look at that build and talking about it once I've got it done.
Awesome stuff. Any other Star Wars purchases lately?
No, I'm being pretty good at the moment. I've got to sort out my Christmas list, so there's a few things that might go on there. Obviously, I need to catch up purchases with my Star Wars Unlimited stuff. So I need to get the latest season of that purchased. And I also see that they've already announced the next one that's coming.
I have indeed. It's pretty hot, the game, so it's set after set after set currently. So, it's hard to keep up, but also it means it's doing well. So I suppose long may it continue.
Yeah, and it's definitely the gameplay's growing as well, which is really, it's the first time I've got involved in this sort of thing, but I'm enjoying it, and I need to get more involved in it.
Indeed. Well, Jace, thank you much for joining us. Where can people find you on social media?
At Hondoling, as always.
And you can find myself on the socials. I am on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram at Geordie Jedi Pete. You can find the podcast on X at Boars Star, and you can find us everywhere else, including Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, everywhere at Star Wars Podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. Leave a lovely little sentence about why you enjoy the show. Not only does it keep me and Jason smiling all week, and it only takes you a few seconds, it also helps people find the show. And if you are leaving a review, again, just share that with us on social media, and we might just send you some little goodies in the post. That brings an end to this week's episode. May the Force be with you all, and remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.